I used to think that Carlos Sainz was kind of overrated. But what does the data say? I'm going to show you data from qualifying as well as data from race pace. And we're going to unpack the question, who won Williams in 2025? Alex Albon or Carlos Sainz? Being a Ferrari fan, I watched Carlos Sainz compared against Charles Leclerc for multiple years. And of course, if you know anything about their time together, you'll know that Carlos Sainz was really solid, but that he was through and through a second driver. There was never a period in their tenure where you really felt as though Carlos Sainz had a stake in leading the team. Carlos Sainz was kind of similar to Valtteri Bottas at Mercedes or Checo Perez at Red Bull back when he was doing quite well. He was a second driver. So going up against Alex Albon, who was a driver who we all knew to have vanquished teammates, absolutely destroyed teammates after his situation at Red Bull, I kind of assumed that Carlos Sainz would be beaten by Albon pretty convincingly. What I did not expect was for 2025 to turn Carlos Sainz into, I think, maybe my favorite driver, and a driver whose potential, I think, even after quite a career already, he's only now beginning to really show. In the first half of the year, when Carlos Sainz was relatively new to Williams as a team, you could have been forgiven for thinking that Sainz was being beaten comprehensively by Albon. Albon was way ahead in points, and in qualifying you can see that for the first half of the year, Albon actually took 9 sessions over Sainz's 6. Now already this was much better than I was expecting. I didn't expect Sainz to be able to keep up with Albon, especially not right out of the gate. And to see that he was able to match him 9-6, which is not dissimilar to what we saw at Ferrari, I was actually pretty surprised that Sainz was able to catch up so quickly in terms of a new team where Alex Albon had already been an established presence for years. But it's the second half of the season that really caught my eye. In the latter half of the season, Sainz took 11 out of 15 sessions. I can't count how many times during that period I spotted Sainz in a Q3 and wondered how the hell he managed to drag his Williams up into the top 10. And the race pace tells the same story. If we look at the Christmas tree for the year, Merry Christmas by the way, you can see that for the first 2/3 of the year, Alex Albon had the measure of Carlos Sainz, being 1, 2, 3, 4, sometimes even 8/10 quicker per lap in race pace. Moving into the second half though, things began to change. Sainz being quicker in both qualifying and race pace became the rule and not the exception. And as a result of his second half of the season resurgence, his year total stats look a little bit like this. Over the course of the year, Alex Albon was quicker than Carlos Sainz at an average lap at an average race, about 0.119 seconds per lap. Alex Albon has a huge weight of unreal performances in the first part of the year, and of course, when looking at medians over the course of the entire season and removing recency bias, that kind of stuff sticks with you in the final numbers. But I think most of us watching know that by the time the end of the season came around, with a couple of podiums in his pocket, Carlos Sainz seemed to be the leading driver at Williams. In fact, if you were to isolate only the last 5 races that both drivers finished, you would find that Carlos Sainz was 0.4 a lap on average faster than Alex Albon. So I think that speaks a lot to the momentum. Going into this new regulation cycle, going into the new year, I think that the momentum is fair and square with Carlos Sainz. Qualifying is the same story. If you look at all 30 sessions over the course of the year, Alex Albon won 13 of them, whilst Carlos Sainz won 17. Now, 13 to 17 is not an enormous gap. There are teammate pairings on the grid who we consider to be relatively equal, who have a much larger gap. But I think the more important statistic is, again, if you look at the second half of the year compared to the first. It is true that over the course of the season, Carlos Sainz won 56% of the qualifying sessions that he shared with Alex Albon. But if you look only at the second half of the season, you'll find that he won 11 out of 15, which is 73%. So yes, I was wrong. I thought that Alex Albon would beat Carlos Sainz pretty convincingly. I thought that it would take a couple of years for Sainz to be able to really compete with Alex. Alex, of course, has been at the team for a number of years. Carlos Sainz was used to Ferrari, top team, front running. Well, I mean, sometimes. And to be honest, I'm still surprised looking back at the year at how quickly Carlos Sainz was able to catch up. going into 26, we have brand new regulations. It's true that Carlos Sainz is, I think, maybe the smartest driver in terms of race awareness and being able to figure out strategies whilst driving the car, which is just crazy. We also know that Williams was able to have a pretty stellar 2025, despite the fact that they stopped working on their car extremely early in the season, dedicating all of their efforts and manpower to 2026. So if we can really truly see a return of Williams to the front running pack for 2026 or other years ahead, I would be really impressed to see Carlos Sainz fighting for the occasional win. I think that in 2026, Carlos Sainz will probably cement his place as Williams' leader. And should Williams be as good as James Vowles said that they might be, really pushing not only for the occasional podium, but perhaps the occasional win and a front-running car, I think we'll see Carlos Sainz on the top step of that podium. And I'm pretty excited for that. Thank you so much for watching. I'll catch you in the next one.